Hello, everyone. Steve Niehaus here with Edison Business Advisors. I'm here with Mike Pfeffer and Eric Gall. Eric's the managing partner for Edison Business Advisors, and Mike and I and Eric make up the team. And we also are fortunate to have Tammy Teese here. Tammy is the SBA expert with Live Oak Bank. She is the senior loan officer with Live Oak Bank, and she's been intimately involved in a number of the SBA lending options that have been coming out and trying to stay on top of. What we'd like to do today is talk about the impact. Obviously, COVID-19 has a dramatic impact on the whole world, but specifically as far as buying and selling businesses. So we'd like to talk about some of the things that we're seeing, some of the things we're learning about, what's going on in the industry. So first of all, I'd like to turn it over to Michael. And Michael, if you could talk about how would we look at business valuations in this market?
I've been getting quite a few calls from business owners that want to know how this is going to affect the value of their business. And it really makes such a difference as to what kind of business it is. As we know, some of the restaurants that have closed are not going to reopen. They're going to be worth the value of the fair market value of their assets at that point. Some businesses are thriving in this environment because they're supplying the needs. There might be distribution companies, and those valuations would look like they were going to go up. But we will actually treat them the same way we're going to treat the valuations on the businesses that have gone down. We treat this kind of like a hurricane. So it's a non-recurring event, we hope. And we're going to look at the long term. When we look at value, value only exists in the future. So we're going to try to project out for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now, we may adjust the discount rate a little bit because we don't know if we're going to have a recurrence or not. But some businesses are going to bounce back really strong in the last 2 quarters of this year. And we will just not count this first 2 quarters and look to the futures to recover the value. So overall, like I say, we're going to treat this like a non-recurring event, and it shouldn't have a great impact on most businesses, but obviously this is going to put some businesses out of business.
Yeah, yeah. So Eric, if you look at sellers in this market, as far as what should they be thinking about, because, buyers coming to them, a lot of buyers are going to be looking for a value, if you will, but what would you be advising sellers to be thinking about as they get ready to sell their businesses?
I think flexibility is going to be important because right now with uncertainty in the market, there's risk, and, buyers are generally risk averse. So they're going to be looking at, ways to protect, their investment in a new business. So what does that mean? That means they're probably going to be looking at, anything that they can claw back in the event of, say, a second round of coronavirus or a new pandemic or anything out there in the future that, puts that investment at risk. The ways a buyer would generally do this are seller financing. So, sharing in the risk with the seller. It could be an earnout, which protects them against, lost revenues in the event of a pandemic like this, where, restaurants and other businesses are down, 70% from what they normally operate at. So, those are kind of things that, you would, definitely see coming out of this downturn. But you're also going to see some other things like holdbacks just to make sure that there's seller cooperation in the transition, the normal stuff that you see as well. But I would expect that definitely seller financing and earnouts are going to be on the increase.
Yeah, yeah. So Tammy, I know you're in the middle of keeping up with the new phase of the SBA. If you were advising sellers and buyers and some of the folks that we're dealing with mutually, what would you say are some of the hot button things we should be looking for?
So I think that setting the expectation with sellers up front that there's going to be more due diligence than the norm going forward. I know sometimes that can be frustrating to sellers when they have to provide some, additional documentation or some of what they might consider nitpicky type things to the bank. So I think if we can prepare sellers when we're doing listings or even just in general conversations that, everybody's going to be doing a little bit more work on the front end than usual for a little while, that would be really super helpful. What we have been talking about, and we are going to be enlisting the help of some of our valuation experts to make sure that we've got the right formula. But what we've been talking about as we go forward is, obviously, much like Michael said, this is a snapshot in time. This isn't a forever, it's a one-time event. And how do we carve that out? Because, do we discount the first half of the year altogether? Yeah, maybe that's what we do. And really just go off of 2019. But some of the things we've been tossing around is doing a month over month analysis between 18 and 19 to really get the historical picture, instead of, really looking at anything regarding 2020. And by doing it month over month, we can get a good idea of any kind of seasonalities instead of just a lump sum, and get the true revenue picture. So we've been really kind of looking at that as a whole. Eric has a great point. We've been talking a lot about the seller note and potentially having some clawback language in the seller notes, should it not be what they presented or what we were able to identify based on what was provided. We've also talked about doing separate seller notes based on similar to an earnout, based on a revenue goal for that year that the buyer comes up with, or the team as a whole comes up with. Maybe we have two notes for a total of 250. One for 125, and then the first year you have to hit a revenue of this, or that potentially is forgiven, or those terms of that note change. And then the second year also, that 125 is tied to a goal, a revenue goal or a sales goal or an increase of some kind. We've been talking about that. Definitely talked a little bit, this isn't solid because it can get pricey, but maybe an earnings report. They can also be lengthy too. We certainly don't want to be holding up the process. But if it's something that we really feel strongly about, but we really want to identify, what the key things to look for are, we might order one of those. Typically when we do that, we don't necessarily, we try not to hold up the process, and we know it can be costly. So something we might look to split cost on, and different things to get creative, be cooperative, but also be protecting the buyer, the bank, and y'all as well. Reputation is going to be key going forward. Yeah. I think we've heard a lot of unintentional misinformation too around even just these SBA programs themselves. There's been so much information out there, and it's hard to decipher. Anybody with Google can be an expert. So we really want to make sure that we're getting the right information out there. We're being helpful. We're being a partner to you, to your sellers, to your buyers, in providing the most accurate, up-to-date information.
Oh, great. Yeah. So, I mean, the reality, when Eric hit on it, actually everyone hit on it, is that the time to be flexible and creative is definitely required right now. But deals are still happening. I know all of us are working on deals, and things are still happening. So it's still possible. It's just going to take a little different thinking, a little more flexibility with the buyers trying to, get a little more creative. So thank you for that. Eric, do you have any thoughts or any comments in closing here?
Yeah, I think, I'm seeing, much stronger buyer activity in the past week. I think it's starting to pick back up. I think, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think people are seeing that, things are about to open back up. I know it'll be slow. It's not going to be a quick, reopening, but, people, are starting to gain a little bit of confidence on the buy side. And, they're getting a lot more active, and I think that bodes well for, our industry going forward, but I think it bodes well for everybody as well. So the sooner we can open back up, the better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if I could just chime in just a little bit too, to Eric's point, it's become very attractive to make a move fairly soon. with the 6 months of payments being made by the SBA if you close before September 25th. And the low interest rates, so this is going to be a really good time, makes it a little bit more attractive for those folks that may have been on the fence. And I think too, there's some negotiating power there too for folks who are looking to buy and have the wherewithal to do so.
Yeah, great. So is there any thoughts or any references that you would recommend for people who want to get educated more about some of these programs? What's the best reference you think for that, Tammy?
I would say, not to toot my own horn, but Live Oak's website has a ton of resources, whether it's a vertical like a veterinarian or a brewery or something like that. We have a ton of resources, good things to look at questions to ask when they're looking at an acquisition. And they can certainly reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to review options, put a structure together, just talk about just anything that they might be thinking about, going forward, whether it's tomorrow, maybe it's 2 months from now, but it never hurts to get the ball rolling, create a file, and that way we've got something to go on. But there are some really great resources out there. The SBA website is a great resource, but trying to decipher some of that stuff can be challenging. So I would always say reach out to a lender, whether it's myself or one of the other wonderful lenders that you use, and just ask questions, get a person on the phone, because that's the way you're going to get the best information.
Yeah, great. Okay. Any closing comments? Anyone else? We're good. So thank you for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. If you need Tammy's contact information, please contact myself, Eric, or Michael, and we'll pass that on. All right. Thanks again, and have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Be well.
Thanks,
Guys.
everyone.